Are you tired of feeling like a target, constantly under attack in your personal and professional life? Have you ever wondered if there's a secret to protecting yourself from harm? In this video, we will dive into the wisdom of legendary samurai Miyamoto Musashi as we explore the surprising truth behind the statement. Lesson 1. Being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is not a sign of weakness, but a state of being open to attack. In today's world, being vulnerable can often lead to hurt. People may take advantage of your openness, your emotions, and your sensitivity. However, Musashi's teachings provide us with valuable insights into how to be vulnerable without being hurt. Musashi, in his Book of Five Rings, speaks about understanding your enemy and yourself. This means understanding your vulnerabilities and strengthening them. It's not about hiding your vulnerabilities, but about being wise in how and when you expose them. Remember, everyone has vulnerabilities, but not everyone uses them wisely. Being vulnerable is not a bad thing, but being too vulnerable too often can lead to hurt. It's about finding the balance between being open and being guarded. Musashi teaches us to be like water, fluid and adaptable, yet powerful and resilient. Be open, but be prepared. Be vulnerable, but be wise. Musashi's teachings on vulnerability are deeply rooted in his understanding of the warrior's path. He believed that a warrior must be ready to face any situation, to adapt to any circumstance. This requires a deep understanding of one's own strengths and weaknesses, of one's own vulnerabilities. Musashi teaches us that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. It is a strength because it allows us to connect with others, to empathize with them, to understand them. It is a strength because it allows us to grow, to learn, to improve. However, Musashi also teaches us that vulnerability must be balanced with wisdom. We must be wise in how and when we expose our vulnerabilities. We must be wise in who we trust with our vulnerabilities. Musashi's teachings on vulnerability are not about hiding our vulnerabilities, but about using them wisely. They are about understanding that vulnerability is a part of life, a part of being human. They are about understanding that vulnerability can be a source of strength, of growth, of connection. So how can we apply Musashi's teachings on vulnerability to our lives? How can we be vulnerable without being hurt? First, we must understand our own vulnerabilities. We must understand our own emotions, our own fears, our own insecurities. We must understand what makes us vulnerable, what triggers our vulnerabilities. Second, we must be wise in how and when we expose our vulnerabilities. We must be discerning in who we trust with our vulnerabilities. We must be careful not to expose our vulnerabilities too often, too soon, or to the wrong people. Third, we must be prepared. We must be ready to face the consequences of our vulnerability. We must be ready to face rejection, to face hurt, to face disappointment. We must be ready to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, to heal ourselves. Fourth, we must be resilient. We must be able to bounce back from hurt, from rejection, from disappointment. We must be able to learn from our experiences, to grow from our experiences, to improve from our experiences. Fifth, we must be open. We must be open to connection, to empathy, to understanding. We must be open to the possibilities that vulnerability brings, to the growth that vulnerability brings, to the strength that vulnerability brings. By understanding our vulnerabilities, by being wise in how and when we expose them, by being prepared, by being resilient, and by being open, we can navigate the complexities of vulnerability with wisdom and strength. Remember, vulnerability is a part of life, a part of being human. Lesson 2. Trusting too easily. Trust is a powerful tool in any relationship, but trusting too easily can lead to hurt. Musashi teaches us to be discerning, to observe and understand before making a decision. He says, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain." This means understanding that people have different motivations, different paths. Some may be trustworthy, others may not. It's important to observe, to understand, before trusting. Trust is earned, not given freely. Trusting too easily often stems from a desire to see the best in people, to believe in their goodness. While this is a noble sentiment, it can also be a recipe for hurt. Not everyone has your best interests at heart, and not everyone can be trusted. Musashi teaches us to be discerning, to observe and understand before making a decision. This means taking the time to get to know people, to understand their motivations, their actions, their character. It means not rushing into trust, but taking a measured, considered approach. Trust is not something that should be given freely, but something that should be earned. It is a reward for consistent, reliable behavior, for actions that demonstrate integrity and honesty. By being discerning in our trust, we can protect ourselves from hurt and disappointment. However, this does not mean that we should be suspicious or paranoid. Musashi's teachings are not about mistrust, but about wise trust. They are about understanding that trust is a precious commodity, one that should be handled with care. Perceive those things which cannot be seen. This means understanding that people's actions often reveal more than their words. It means looking beyond the surface, beyond appearances, to understand the true nature of people. Trusting too easily often involves taking people at face value, accepting their words without questioning their actions. However, Musashi teaches us to be more discerning, to look beyond the surface, to perceive those things which cannot be seen. This does not mean that we should never trust. Trust is a necessary part of any relationship. However, it should be given wisely, based on evidence, on actions, not just words. Musashi's teachings also emphasize the importance of self-reliance. He says, "Do not depend on following the degree of the enemy. The way to defeat him is to know oneself." This means understanding that ultimately we are responsible for our own safety, our own well-being. By being self-reliant, we can protect ourselves from the hurt that comes from trusting too easily. We can make decisions based on our own understanding, our own judgment, not just on the words of others. Musashi's teachings provide us with valuable insights into how to be discerning in our trust, how to understand and observe before making a decision. By being discerning, by looking beyond the surface, by being self-reliant, we can protect ourselves from the hurt that comes from trusting too easily. Lesson 3. Expecting too much. Expectations can be a source of great joy, but also of great hurt. Musashi teaches us to be realistic in our expectations, to understand the world as it is, not as we want it to be. He says, "Do not think dishonestly. The way is in training." This means understanding that people are not perfect, that they make mistakes. It's important to have expectations, but they must be realistic. Expecting too much can lead to disappointment, to hurt. Musashi teaches us to focus on our own training, our own growth. Expect more of yourself, not of others. This is the path to true understanding, to true strength. When we expect too much, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We create an idealized version of reality in our minds, a version that often does not align with the truth. This can lead to hurt, to disappointment, to frustration. Musashi teaches us to be realistic in our expectations, to understand the true nature of things. This does not mean we should not have high standards or strive for excellence. Rather, it means we should understand that excellence is a journey, not a destination. It means we should understand that people are not perfect, that they make mistakes. Expecting too much can also lead to pressure, to stress. When we expect too much from ourselves, we can become overwhelmed, burnt out. When we expect too much from others, we can create unhealthy dynamics, unrealistic demands. Musashi teaches us to balance our expectations with reality, to strive for excellence while understanding the limitations of ourselves and others. He teaches us to focus on the process, not just the outcome, to focus on the journey, not just the destination. In his Book of Five Rings, Musashi writes, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. This means understanding that there are many ways to achieve our goals, many ways to reach our destination. It means understanding that the journey is just as important as the destination, that the process is just as important as the outcome. When we expect too much, we often focus too much on the destination, on the outcome. We lose sight of the journey, of the process. We become so focused on achieving our goals that we forget to enjoy the journey, to appreciate the process." Musashi teaches us to enjoy the journey, to appreciate the process, to understand that the journey is just as important as the destination, that the process is just as important as the outcome. Expecting too much can lead to hurt, to disappointment, to stress. It's important to have expectations, but they must be realistic. They must be balanced with an understanding of the true nature of things, of the true nature of people. Musashi teaches us to understand the true nature of things, to see the world as it is, not as we want it to be. He teaches us to focus on the process, not just the outcome, to enjoy the journey, not just the destination. Lesson 4. Holding grudges. Holding grudges is like holding onto a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. This is a profound truth that Musashi understood well. In his teachings, he emphasizes the importance of letting go of anger and resentment. Musashi's philosophy is deeply rooted in the concept of mushin or no mind, a mental state of being present and free from attachment to emotions or thoughts. When you hold a grudge, you are attached to the past, to the hurt that was caused. This attachment prevents you from being present, from moving forward. Holding grudges often leads to a cycle of hurt. When you hold on to anger and resentment, you are more likely to act in ways that cause hurt to others, which in turn leads to more grudges, more hurt. This cycle can only be broken by letting go, by forgiving. Forgiveness is not about excusing the hurt that was caused. It's about releasing the attachment to the hurt. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment. As Musashi teaches, you must not have any offensive thoughts. Let the offensive spirit be known to all, but do not let this spirit dwell in your heart. This means understanding that holding grudges only hurts you, not the person you're holding a grudge against. It's important to let go, to move on. Holding grudges only holds you back. But how do you let go of a grudge? How do you forgive? Musashi's teachings provide us with valuable insights into this process. First, you must understand the hurt. Understand why it happened. Understand how it affected you. This understanding is not about dwelling on the hurt, but about gaining insight into it. Next, you must accept the hurt. Accept that it happened. Accept that it cannot be changed. This acceptance is not about resignation, but about acknowledging the reality of the situation. Then, you must choose to let go of the hurt. Choose to release the attachment to the anger and resentment. This choice is not about forgetting, but about moving forward. Finally, you must cultivate compassion. Cultivate understanding and empathy for the person who caused the hurt. This compassion is not about excusing, but about healing. Musashi teaches us to focus on the present, on the now. Let go of the past. Let go of your grudges. This is the path to true freedom, to true peace. In the Book of Five Rings, Musashi writes, "The true science of martial arts means practicing them in such a way that they will be useful at any time, and to teach them in such a way that they will be useful in all things." This teaching applies not only to martial arts, but to life itself. Holding grudges is not useful. It does not serve you. It only causes hurt. It only holds you back. So, let go of your grudges. Forgive. This is the path to true strength, to true wisdom. Remember, hurt is a part of life, but it's how we respond to it that defines us. So let's learn from Musashi, let's learn from our hurt, and let's grow stronger together. Let's let go of our grudges, let's forgive. For in forgiveness, we find true freedom, true peace, by understanding the hurt, accepting it, choosing to let go, and cultivating compassion. We can break the cycle of hurt, we can heal. So let's learn from Musashi, let's learn from our hurt, and let's grow stronger together. Lesson 5. Putting others first. Always. Putting others first is a noble act, but doing it always can lead to hurt. Musashi teaches us to balance our own needs with the needs of others. He says, "You can win with strategy. It is important to see distant things as if they were close, and to take a distanced view of close things." This means understanding that you are as important as others. It's important to help others, but not at the expense of your own well-being. Putting others first always can lead to burnout, to hurt. Musashi teaches us to be strategic, to balance our own needs with the needs of others. This is the path to true harmony, to true balance. Putting others first always can lead to a loss of self-identity. You become so focused on meeting the needs of others that you forget about your own needs. This can lead to feelings of resentment, burnout, and ultimately hurt. Musashi teaches us to be like the sword, strong and sharp, yet flexible and adaptable. A sword that is too hard is brittle and will break. A sword that is too soft is weak and will not hold its edge. The perfect sword, like the perfect self, is a balance of hardness and softness, of strength and flexibility. Putting others first always is like being a sword that is too soft. You become too flexible, too accommodating, and you lose your edge. You lose your sense of self. Musashi teaches us to be strong, to be firm, to stand up for ourselves, to prioritize our own needs. This is not selfishness, but self-care. Putting others first always can also lead to unhealthy relationships. It can create a dynamic where others expect you to always put their needs first, leading to an imbalance of power. This can lead to feelings of being taken for granted, of being used, and ultimately of being hurt. Musashi teaches us to be aware of this dynamic, to understand the power balance in our relationships. He says, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain." This means understanding that there are different ways to approach relationships, different ways to balance the needs of self and others. Putting others first always is not the only path. It's important to find your own path, your own balance. Musashi teaches us to be independent, to be self-reliant, to stand on your own 2 feet, to take care of your own needs. This is not selfishness, but self-respect. By understanding the importance of balance, of rhythm, of self-care, and of self-respect, we can navigate our relationships with others with wisdom and strength. Remember, putting others first is a noble act, but doing it always can lead to hurt. Lesson 6. Ignoring boundaries. Ignoring boundaries is not just about physical space. It can also refer to emotional and mental boundaries. Musashi's teachings emphasize the importance of understanding and respecting these boundaries, both in ourselves and in others. In the Book of Five Rings, Musashi writes, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. This can be interpreted as a reminder that everyone has their own journey, their own path, and their own boundaries. It's important to respect these boundaries, to understand that everyone has their own limits, their own comfort zones. Ignoring emotional boundaries can lead to emotional hurt. This can happen when you push someone to talk about something they're not comfortable with, or when you expect someone to always be there for you, regardless of their own emotional state. It's important to understand that everyone has their own emotional limits, their own emotional boundaries. Respect these boundaries. Respect these limits. Ignoring mental boundaries can lead to mental hurt. This can happen when you push someone to think or act in a certain way, or when you expect someone to always agree with you, regardless of their own thoughts or beliefs. It's important to understand that everyone has their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own mental boundaries. Respect these boundaries, respect these limits. Musashi teaches us to be aware, to be respectful. He says, you must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. This means understanding that everyone has their own path, their own journey, their own boundaries. It's important to respect these boundaries, to understand these limits. Ignoring boundaries can lead to conflict, to hurt. But how do we know what these boundaries are? How do we know what these limits are? The answer lies in communication. Musashi teaches us to be observant, to be aware. This means being observant of others, being aware of their boundaries, their limits. But it also means being observant of ourselves, being aware of our own boundaries, our own limits. Communication is key. Talk to others, listen to others, understand their boundaries, their limits, but also talk to yourself, listen to yourself, understand your own boundaries, your own limits. This is the path to true respect, to true understanding. Musashi's teachings also remind us that boundaries are not static. They can change, they can evolve. This means being open to change, being open to evolution. Respect boundaries, but also understand that they can change. This is the path to true adaptability, to true growth. By being aware, by being respectful, by being observant, by being communicative, we can understand and respect boundaries, both in ourselves and in others. Remember, boundaries are not barriers, they are guides, they are limits. Respect them, understand them, and grow stronger together. Lesson 7. Being judgmental. Being judgmental is a habit that many of us fall into, often without realizing it. We make quick assessments about people based on their appearance, their behavior, or their beliefs. But these judgments are often superficial and can lead to misunderstandings and hurt feelings. Miyamoto Musashi, in his teachings, emphasizes the importance of understanding over judgment. He believes that true understanding comes from observation, from experience, and from open-mindedness. It's about seeing people for who they truly are, not who we think they are. Musashi's teachings on being open-minded and understanding can be seen in his approach to martial arts. He was known for his ability to adapt to any situation, to any opponent. He did not rely on a single weapon or technique, but rather he used whatever was most effective in the moment. This adaptability came from his understanding of his opponents, of their strengths and weaknesses, of their strategies and tactics. In the same way, we can apply Musashi's teachings to our interactions with others. Instead of judging people based on our initial impressions, we should strive to understand them. This means taking the time to listen to their stories, to understand their perspectives, to see the world through their eyes. Being open-minded and understanding doesn't mean agreeing with everything someone says or does. It means respecting their right to have their own beliefs, their own opinions, their own way of life. It means acknowledging that everyone has their own path, their own journey, and that it's not our place to judge them for it. Being judgmental can also hurt us in the long run. It can limit our growth, our experiences, our relationships. When we judge others, we close ourselves off to new ideas, new perspectives, new opportunities. We create barriers between ourselves and others, barriers that can be difficult to break down. On the other hand, when we are open-minded and understanding, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We learn from others, we grow from others, we connect with others. We create a world that is more inclusive, more accepting, more compassionate. Musashi believed in the power of observation. He believed that by observing people, by understanding their behavior, their actions, their motivations, we can gain a deeper understanding of who they are. So, before you judge someone, take the time to observe them. Musashi also believed in the power of listening. He believed that by listening to people, by understanding their stories, their experiences, their perspectives, we can gain a deeper understanding of their world. So, listen to people, not to respond, but to understand. Musashi was known for his adaptability, for his willingness to try new things, to explore new ideas. So be open to new ideas, to new perspectives, to new ways of thinking. You might be surprised by what you learn. Musashi believed in respect, in treating others with kindness and compassion. So, respect others, even if you don't agree with them. Remember, everyone has their own path, their own journey. Musashi believed in empathy, in understanding others' feelings, in seeing the world through their eyes. So, practice empathy. Try to understand how others feel. Try to see the world through their eyes, by understanding our vulnerabilities, by being discerning in our trust, by being realistic in our expectations, by letting go of grudges, by balancing our own needs with the needs of others, by respecting boundaries, and by being open-minded. We can navigate the complexities of life with wisdom and strength. Remember, hurt is a part of life, but it's how we respond to it that defines us.